Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to Q&A 65.
Silver anniversary, gold anniversary, something like that. I don't know.
I just feel like the Q&As, they've crossed the threshold into senior citizenship.
It's true, yeah. Discounts places.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay, well, we have some great stuff to dive into today. So, Kate, you get to kick it off. And I think you also have a disclaimer you want to share with people, too, before we actually start
only one or
reading
three.
the Q&As.
So, yeah, guys, I still have the dog. And he's laying down at my feet, which means I'm in my living room. So, I apologize. I'm sure it sounds more echoey and the sound quality isn't as good as usual. Because there's not as much carpeting in this room. And that's just how acoustics work. That and my house might make noise in times and places that our lovely, wonderful, amazing editor Meg may not be able to make it help, right? There's only so much magic that can be worked. So just apologize for any interruptions or noises in the background and the sound quality. I've been really nauseated today, but I think I'm feeling a little bit better, so maybe I won't be harumphy. We'll see. All right, let's get to the first one. This one reads, "Hi, Kate and Michelle, longtime listener, first-time emailer here. Thank you for your excellent podcast. I have two siblings, an older brother with whom I am very emotionally close, and a younger sister to whom I could not be more different. We fought constantly as children, but we've moved past this now and have since apologized, and I have since apologized for my behavior. We're both in our early 20s now, and I've been struggling with depression for 7 years. When I was first diagnosed, my family rallied around me and tried to help, except my sister. She wouldn't ask how I was or help me in any way, even if it was just making me a cup of tea. My mom is closer to my sister than I am and has explained to me that she was only 17 when my depression first started, and so she didn't know what to say. My sister tends to keep her emotions inside and not appear that sympathetic. She's told my mom she feels very insecure in a lot of areas in her life and struggles with anxiety, but at the same time, her actions deeply, deeply hurt me, and I feel this white-hot anger whenever I see or hear about her. In family situations, I'm ashamed to say I act very passive-aggressively towards her. This makes the rest of my family angry, and then they take my sister's side, which makes me even angrier, confused, and ashamed. I've tried using opposite action and willing hands when I'm around her, but it only seems to cram the anger and resentment down, not neutralize it. I know that what she did seemed heartless, but I'm also wondering whether I am to blame. Is my anger making things awkward for her? I also can't keep playing the victim and wonder whether I should just accept that not everyone is going to be totally loving and caring towards me. To top it all off, whenever I try to talk to her about anything vaguely emotional, she becomes very defensive and her style of talking comes across as aggressive and dismissive. I'm soft-spoken and gentle, and to be frank, she intimidates me. How can I begin to move on from this? Should I reveal any of this to her? Could you also give me some advice on how to cope around her day to day? She and her boyfriend are coming to stay with us for a couple of weeks next month, and to say I'm dreading it would be an understatement. Part of me is wondering if I should move into a hotel until they're gone? Thank you both. Your help is much appreciated."
Yeah. I think at a first glance when I saw this email, I want to be really mindful of the fact that there's so little that we know about listeners themselves and their lives. And, we only have this little bit to go off of. And so sometimes I want to tread really carefully with what comes up for me. But it just came up so strongly when I read this email that I was just like, listener, I don't buy it that the two of you have actually moved past things from your childhood. I just don't buy it. Yeah, it is. It's good, of course, to apologize for any role and wrongdoing that you can see that came from you. That is important. And also, I don't know, the thing about apologizing is that it doesn't change patterns, right? Apologizing is very much a first step towards repair. It is not the end all be all of repair. And so, yeah, apologies can help, but you need more to repair what's actually happened. This listener also really spoke to like the anger sticking around over all these years. And anger is typically about an unmet need, right? We feel angry when we want something and can't have it. And so the first step that I was thinking of for this listener is that you need to acknowledge what you needed from her that you haven't gotten. Because if that need was met, it wouldn't be bothering you still. So there's some unmet need there. I don't know what it is. This is for you to introspect on and get therapy around if you're not already in therapy, to discover what that unmet need could be, and to also recognize that you may never get that need met by your sister. So often I feel like what happens in our lives is that we have unmet needs and we decide who we think should fill that need for us. We're like, okay, I'm trying to think of a random example off the top of my head. I don't know, I want to go out and do things and have fun. And I've decided that I want to go out and do fun things with my spouse. Or I've decided that I want to go out and do fun things with my best friend or, whoever it is. And then we're like, I want them to do this thing with me. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. But they may not be able to meet that need, or they may not want to meet that need for us. And then we come upon radical acceptance.
Dun, dun, dun. Sorry.
Dun dun. to really recognize that, like, okay, I could go to my sister and I can say, hey, this is what I would really like from you. But I cannot control whether or not she's going to be open to any kind of change. She may not, right? Like, sometimes a mantra I think of is telling ourselves they are who they are and I cannot change them, which is a tough pill to swallow, but it is true. People are who they are and we cannot change other people. All we can do is, again, talk about our own wants and needs and see what they do with that. That is it. That is all, for better or worse. And so I was kind of sensing that throughout this email too. Yeah, there was just this piece of, I really want to maybe even be like as close to my sister as I am with my brother. I was just like, you may need to radically accept that that isn't going to happen. Those relationships are going to look different. However, having needs is not wrong or bad. So whatever need you have that you are wanting your sister to fill around, it sounds like especially in supporting you when you are really in a down time with your depression, and that you are looking for support from other people in your life around that time, of course you are, right? That's totally natural and normal. But can you get creative about who else could meet that need? Other ways to get what you are looking for. So reaching out to other people, and seeing if you can find that in other ways that may not be getting it from your sister, which of course there's going to be a ton of grief around that. I mean, that feels important to name. There already is a lot of grief around that, and there likely will continue to be grief around that. The question, there was a direct question here that seemed important of, should I reveal any of this to her? And again, my gut reaction was only if you're prepared for her to not be able to receive or listen to what you have to say. Because we don't know how she's going to react. We can never know. And the only way that things will really start to change is that you need both people to be willing and open to engage in those tough conversations and talk about, okay, what is our pattern? What are we each willing to do to change the pattern between us as it currently exists? Because the pattern as it currently exists isn't working for one or both of us. So what needs to adjust to make this relationship more successful and to last long term? But we don't know if she would be open to engaging in that. So all it really is like, you can talk to her about that. Of course, that's an option for you. But we don't know how she's going to respond. I think it would also be really important, if you're going to reveal this to her, to talk specifically about the unmet need that you recognize you have. Not to rehash all of the things that she has done that you didn't like. And, well, I wish you had done this and you should have done that. No. To just be like, I'm realizing that this is what I would really like. And this is what I'm really looking for from our relationship. And what do you think about that? And is that something that you also want? And are you willing to work together with me to move closer to it? And again, we don't know. As far as like, again, also with revealing things, we can reveal things in a variety of ways. Yep, some of that could look like a sit-down face-to-face conversation, but I'm pretty sure I've said this in other Q&As. It does not have to look like that. That is arguably the, like the boss level with, communicating tough and challenging things. So if you want to write it down in a letter, you could do that. You can get it out to her in some other way that might feel more comfortable and more easily accessible to you. But yeah, if you are going to say anything, you just want to make sure that you feel like you're going to get benefit from that conversation, even if she does have a pretty poor reaction, that it's still going to be good for you to share at the very least. So I hope I addressed most of the main things in there, but I think you're going to talk more about skills, Kate, which is great. I know I talked about radical acceptance, but you've got some other things in mind here.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was thinking like, yeah, Michelle's got like in not the bad way, the more generic psychology stuff, right? Like you've got the background.
I'm not talking about
underlying
DBT.
Stuff. Yeah, exactly. No, like so I'll come in and add a little bit more of that. Though I was going to mention this at the end, but I think it actually makes sense to mention this now because I'm actually referencing a skill that the person talks about using. So I will reveal that we don't often get follow-up emails, but we did get a couple of follow-up emails from this particular listener. And so in summary, things are going much better between them and their sister. Things hit a kind of crisis point, and then they communicated more openly and honestly, and they've been able to find ways to interact that feel safer for both of them. So that's pretty awesome. And one of the things I mentioned is using give. So I was like, I need to mention the follow-up emails first, because the first thing I mentioned in my response is, I think using give is great. And then you're like, well, that wasn't mentioned anywhere in the first email. Why are you talking about that like it's actually happened? So anyway, yay, happy-ish ending. I don't know. Happy new beginning. Happy part of the story journey thing. Anyway, stop trying to be more precise, Kate. Accuracy will be the death of me. So anyway, I do want to say, though, that I was very impressed with this listener being willing to, give a go. It can be a difficult one where there's already been historical conflict, right, to really sit in the give space. So just a kudos on leaning into that. Also, just thinking back to the first email and them talking about family things or their sister coming to visit specifically, I thought that was a fantastic, absolutely perfect, made for it kind of opportunity for cope ahead and or effective rethinking and paired relaxation. Depending on the thing, I think and may actually be a real possible seller here for helping to change some of those, like, I really felt I saw some hints at some, like, maybe absolute thinking, black and white thinking, things like that. And so helping to shift those kinds of thoughts with the effective rethinking and paired relaxation. And then, right, cope ahead is just one of my favorite things for anything difficult that we know is approaching. So utilizing the heck out of that. Unsurprisingly, I think opposite action may come into play. Right? If you are having this white hot anger, you probably don't get to act on that without consequence. So that and many other emotions, I can imagine you deciding don't either fit the facts or, as often occurs, they do fit the facts, but either their intensity doesn't or everything matches the facts, but acting on it would not be beneficial to your situation. Either way, I think that preparing for some opposite action would make a lot of sense. And definitely stop at family gatherings, right? Especially seeing if this person can try and hold back from some of the passive-aggressive commentary that they mentioned making, right? Stop is a good skill to practice to intervene with yourself before you behave in ways that you find personally shameful. So those are my thoughts. Yeah. I talked way shorter, sorry.
Thanks for adding in some more skills. It's all good stuff. Okay, the next one says, I took a DBT course online about a year ago. While there are some resources here where I live as far as DBT goes, there are not many, and they are not convenient to me. So online was the best option. I felt good completing the course, but afterwards, I've somewhat fallen back. I really struggle with daily routines, and I'm struggling to stay skillful. I have joined here in hopes that it keeps DBT somewhat in the forefront of my brain. My question for the group is, what do you do to stay engaged and focused as far as DBT goes? There are so many things competing for time and attention. How do you give your skills time to develop? I'm realizing reading this, Kate, I feel like we could record a whole episode about this. Like, what do you do?
Kind of?
Like post DBT Live? Maybe we did something along the line.
Oh, I guess not maybe not post group. I just remember, I feel like we've done one on how to try and stick with like skills or like how to set a habit with skills.
Yeah, maybe we did do something along those lines. I should try to find that. I was looking up a different episode to reference, but while you're sharing your thoughts.
It is funny. We've done enough now that I'm like, I know at least that flavor has shown up, but was that specifically the thing? I think, I don't know. We've done enough episodes. I think that's what that shows, that we cannot think of all of them. All right, so while Michelle looks for that, I do want to just normalize that it's totally, oh good Lord, I just can't talk today, totally normal to fall off of your skills after a group. That is, in fact, to some extent, I don't know that there's almost anybody that it doesn't happen to. So the first thing I wanted to do was just validate the heck out of this listener and let them know that, yeah, totally normal to struggle to maintain focus on skills once you're not in an environment that literally demands it of you every week. So Michelle got to these notes before I did, and I like most of her things, but I was like, dig deep, Kate, don't steal. And so the couple of things that I thought of that Michelle does not have in her are, one, the social hour. I know this is limited because of geography, and so the time will not work for everybody, but every other Thursday my clinic hosts a free DBT social hour from 6 to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Zoom. You can get info about it on the Facebook group, etc. So anyway, there might also be others if you look around. I just know that I have a social hour, DBT social hour. There may be other such things, other groups online, etc., that you might be able to join that are like that. And my other thought is to, if you're someone who likes to read, keep reading books on DBT. I have lull here because, of course, Michelle and I wrote a book, so it feels a little self-serving to suggest that someone read a book. We may be biased that one of the books you might select might be ours. No. But really, right, if you're someone that's I guess, hobby that you engage in is consistent reading, having reading research or different ways to utilize it or how it can intersect with different parts of your life can be a great way to keep DBT at the forefront of your mind and keep you looking at it from different perspectives. So, did you find the episode, Michelle?
You know, it doesn't actually look like we have something specifically about this.
Weird.
No, like,
I really thought we did.
We have one that's like using DBT skills in daily life or something like that. Like making sure you're really practically implementing DBT skills consistently. But we don't have one, I don't know, the way that my brain envisioned it a moment ago was having maybe some kind of episode about, like, I don't know, like keeping DBT fresh. Sure. Like after you have done a group and now you are just out in the real world.
So post group DBTs.
Yeah, like what can you do to really make sure you continue to use it in your life? It's stuff we do talk about here and there, but taking all that we share and really putting it into one episode, maybe that's something we could do.
Yeah, good idea. We should drop it in the notes before we leave.
Yeah, I'll have to remember that. Because the first thing that came to mind for me reading this one, love them or hate them, they can serve a very practical purpose, which is exactly this. Is listener, it's time to find a diary card. If your goal is to use DBT skills consistently in your life, and you are struggling, as they said, to keep DBT skills in the forefront of your brain, and that's what you want is, you know, kind of that accountability that a group provides that you just lose when you're not participating in a group any longer, hold yourself accountable with a diary card. And I know that, again, diary cards can be polarizing. Some groups don't use them at all. So you may have been like, I don't really know what diary card to use. And I've never used one before. We have some. I know, oh gosh, this is probably back in like the archives of the Facebook group. If you look at the guides at Facebook group, I'm pretty sure we have a guide that's like titled different diary cards.
Yeah.
Like different diary card templates, or you can just Google it, right? If you Google DBT diary cards,
so many options will come up. So many
templates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pick one that you like and that fits for you. Some are really intense and ask a lot of different questions about various things. Some are much more simple, but finding something that you can start filling out. And what I've always recommended when it comes to diary cards is to put them next to your bed. Fill them out right before you go to sleep to look back at your day and see what happened. How was your day? What skills did you use? And it kind of helps just even reading out different skills to be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I want to think about using that skill for something tomorrow. So that can be helpful. The episode that I was looking up is the episode for when we talked about different DBT apps, which was a long time ago now.
That's true.
That was almost 2 years ago.
Oh, Jesus, fuck.
Yeah. The episode is titled Review of DBT Apps. It came out December 28th, 2022. So in that episode, Kate and I talked about 4 different DBT apps.
Yeah.
And a lot of those apps do incorporate a diary card element. So that can be a very convenient, accessible way to do a diary card is by doing it through an app on your phone, if you find that helpful. And the apps in general some of them just have like a lot of really great resources. Again, if you're feeling rusty on your skills, the apps can help you brush up and remind you of, certain skills, when to use them and all of that stuff. But the other thing that I wanted to put out to this listener to think about is, again, something I commonly recommend, but this is a really appropriate time to mention it, is the idea of picking a skill of the week. I don't care what DBT skill you pick, but at the start of your week, if you look ahead and you go, okay, what's coming up for me this week? How is my week looking? And what is a DBT skill that I want to really dive into based off of whatever I might be encountering in my life this week, right? Do I really want to focus? I'm pulling skills out of thin air, but do I really want to focus on opposite action? Is that going to be my skill this week? Am I going to, I see a conversation coming up in a few days where I might need to use Dear Man. Prior to that conversation, how can I refresh myself on truly the ins and outs of Dear Man? How can I practice that a little bit in advance? Like being really intentional about one DBT skill that you want to put all of your energy and focus towards. Because I think one of the downfalls of DBT is that there are a ton of skills. There's just a ton. Like that's a blessing and a curse, right? There's a skill for a lot of different things, which is nice. But so often what I hear from people is that part of why they struggle to actually go forth and use DBT in their real life is because their brain is trying to pick and choose between like 20 plus skills at any given moment. You're trying to remember all of them. And that's too much. That's too much. So just pick a skill a week to really learn about again, practice again. If you can practice it every day, great. Or again, you might just do some preparation before doing it one time. If there's a chance to use it just once. Whatever it is, just focus on one thing at a time. Don't try to remember and use all the skills. It's too much. So,
I'm not laughing at you, Michelle. This is the dog is being funny.
Oh yeah? Did he wake up?
Yeah, I think he's laying back down again, but I don't have any feet down on the floor right now. I'm sitting crisscrossed. And so he was just like maneuvering and like getting closer and trying to wedge himself between the chair and the table with the laptop. Like he clearly would like to be on my feet right now, but I'm not offering them to them. So he's like, where's the foot, Mom? Give me your foot.
He must be all curled up.
Right? It's very funny. All right, let's see. On to the next well, I was going to say email, but it can be email or comment. This one reads, struggling with motivation and really needing it extra right now. I'll be moving soon and need to get my apartment cleaned and packed up. Any tips on how to make it less overwhelming?
Yeah. Well, I found myself saying this a lot to my clients recently in sessions that I've been doing, which is that, I mean, and you've talked about this, I think, before, Kate, of like our brains are actually pretty dumb.
Yes.
So how can you trick your brain into thinking that cleaning and packing is actually enjoyable? That would be the mission. If you're going to approach this bottom up, right? Focusing on kind of your body and then your brain, there are some things you can do that don't require a lot of thinking or planning or organizing that might trick your brain a little bit. So I was thinking of things like, whenever you are cleaning and packing, to make sure that you're putting on music in the background that you really like, songs you enjoy listening to, maybe music that's a little more upbeat. Might make you want to even like move your body or dance a little bit. May sound silly, but clothes are actually really powerful for like the signals that they send to our brain and how they impact our mood. So wearing clothes that you like when you are cleaning and packing. Another thing that could maybe be helpful, depending, as long as this wouldn't be too distracting for you, but if you have a person in your life, a good trusted other who could come over and keep you company, either to clean and pack with you or at least just to be there while you are cleaning and packing to make it a little more enjoyable, that could be something. You just really want to do anything that's going to kind of change the environment and have it not feel like too much of a task. If you can also, self-soothing type stuff, right? Light a candle that you like the smell of, for example. Have snacks nearby that you enjoy eating for taste, right? It could be anything that, again, will just make it seem less
onerous.
I
said onerous, but...
Onerous? Yep, that works. Yeah, less tedious. Yeah, that kind of a thing. The other thing, though, that's important to remember, and I was struggling to think about how to break this down into DBT terminology, but, it's a thing we talk about a lot where if, you're feeling overwhelmed and not motivated to do something, it's just because you've made the task too big for yourself. So make it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you feel like you can do the thing. So if you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to pack up my entire living room today, and then you find yourself like feeling really overwhelmed by that, be like, okay, nope, I'm going to take the things out of, the coffee table. That feels like too much. Okay, I'm going to take things out of one drawer of the coffee table, right? I'm going to take this one item out of the coffee table. I don't care what it is, as small as it needs to be until you actually do it. Just keep breaking it down without being too hard on yourself because doing something is better than doing nothing. So even if you're like, well, I wanted to pack the whole living room, but all I did was get through the coffee table drawers. Hey, you did something. And we're more likely to not do anything if we just keep the task really, really big in front of us. That does not do us any favors. So what about you, Kate?
Well, I think it's funny. So you were saying you weren't quite sure how to make that last bit like into DBT. So tell me what you think. My pitch is, which is funny because it's kind of in my answer a little bit, but that I would say that that's very much like on the nose mindfulness, right? Like just moment to moment, right? Like if you're real in with your one thing mindfully, right? Like then there isn't the cleaning of the whole living room is never in existence because you're only putting away this one object that's in your hand in this exact moment right now, right? Like that's I can't think of a way to slice it thinner than moment to moment, right? So
that's perfect. I totally agree.
That's my pitch.
I'm all for it. That makes perfect sense. Right, because if we're thinking about the whole living room, we aren't being mindful of
you're future tripping.
That is right.
Yeah.
In front of us. Yep.
So anyway, that is part of my suggestion is one thing mindfully, right? Trying to be in that one singular moment as much as possible, because that one singular moment most of the time isn't overwhelming, right? We stack them up and get crushed. Also, one of the ways to talk about fooling your brain is to find the end result that you actually want, that you can say, I want that, and it's honest, and focus on wanting that. So, for instance, it may be an abject lie to say, I want to pack my kitchen. That would be a lie from me anyway. But you can have like, I'm excited to set up the kitchen in the new place. Like maybe that can be a thing you want. Like I'm so excited to like do this. I want to get my new kitchen set up. If you can keep focused on the want, our brains are good at doling out the dopamine when we decide, oh, I want to do that thing, and then we're taking action towards doing the thing we decided we wanted to do. Your brain is like, good job, you, dopamine. And so it makes tasks that are not in and of themselves inherently rewarding. So find the thing you want, the kernel of want somewhere in the process, and focus on that, and driving towards that. Do your best to stop any shoulding that you're doing on yourself. I should pack this today. I should be done with this by now. I should clean the blah, 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 blah. I'm sure I've gotten on the fucking should soapbox so many times by now that people are probably actually sick of it. So in brevity, every time you should yourself, you're less likely to do the thing that you are trying to get yourself to do. So stop. And let's see, what else did I get? Oh, I thought that maybe some opposite action, to bring it back to some DBT skills, depending on how, down to the moment or how anxious you get, right? It may eventually come down to either whatever emotions I'm having about this don't actually fit the facts, or I just can't keep acting on them, right? It's just not effective anymore to keep acting on how I'm feeling. So maybe opposite action might come into play, depending. And I just wanted to suggest taking breaks, right? People can get in a real, like, I have to finish this before I can... kind of mentality. I'm looking at you, Michelle. So allowing yourself to take breaks in such a way that you're renewing yourself, right? You're refilling your cup when it's empty, right? Like noticing yourself. So mindfulness of self also, I suppose. And trying to take breaks, feed yourself, water yourself, go to the bathroom, do what you need to tend to yourself, as needed.
Yeah. Really nice. Okay, the last one says, hello, I'm new to my diagnosis and to DBT. I'm having a hard time finding wise mind, and I'm not really sure how to differentiate it from the reasonable mind. I can see when I've made decisions from reason versus from emotion, but I have no idea where both fit in. All advice is appreciated.
I love this one.
It's a great question. We get it all the time.
Yep, exactly. And I just think, anyway, I love it. So my first, I don't know, hack, I would say, when it comes to trying to check in for wise mind, is to do an internal check with the question, is my whole self being honored here? Right? It's sort of, if my cheater question for check the facts is what do I actually know? my cheater question for wise mind is my whole self being honored here? Right? Because that's really, right, to me, at least, people can have their own experiences of it, but to me, that's what wise mind is. That's how you get the overlap. That's how you get that, they say we're both fit in, right? We're both fit in by making sure you're honoring your whole self, right? Because you are not a purely reasonable person. You are also not a purely emotional person, right? And so to be honoring your whole self, you have to be tapping into both your reason mind and your emotion mind, right? And it might be different amounts of each. One of the analogies I like to use a lot for the balance aspect or idea behind wise mind is that it's not the balance of equal measures, right, on a scale. It's a balance like a tightrope walker, right? So, they might tip. I'm tipping because you guys can totally see me. Anyway, sorry. I just think it's funny when I act out stuff and there's no reason to. Anyway, right, you might tip really far one way or the other, right? Tightrope rockers as they're going, but their feet are always on the rope, right? And that rope to me is what wise mind is. And so, right, like you might be tending to something that needs more reason mind than emotion mind, right? I think my usual favorite example is hanging drywall, right? You're probably going to use more reason mind than emotion mind for that task. That being said, making a decision about whether to stay in a friendship or not, probably using more emotion mind there than reason mind, right? So it's not about having equal measures, it's about making sure that both measures are being had, right? Like that both are being added to the pot, right? In whatever ratio is most appropriate for this particular recipe. I don't know where that analogy is going. Sorry, guys. Yeah, those are not the whole idea, but those are two of the big things that I like to think about for how to understand the overlap, the Venn diagram space that is wise mind. Also, one of the other things is just to remember how wise mind feels in your body. I know the person's going to be like, no, the whole point is I don't know what the fuck the wise mind is. What do you mean remember how it feels in my body? Sometimes it can be easier, hindsight 2020 whole thing. We sometimes can do a better job, have an easier time of noticing wise mind choices or wise mind moments that we were in when we're no longer in them, right? They could be from years past even. Sometimes that's easier than recognizing it in the moment. And so if you can think back to times where you're pretty sure you had a wise mind decision, can you remember what that felt like in your body, right? When you came to that decision, when you reached that decision point, how did that land? How did that feel in your corporeal self? How'd your meat bag robot react to that decision? Because that, to me at least, is one of my other big grounding ways to know if I am or am not making a wise mind choices. There's a very distinct releasing, I guess, inside myself that I feel, even if I fucking hate whatever the decision is. Even if it's terrifying or painful or anger-inducing, there's still this release that happens for me. So those are my pieces of advice. You have a lot of good ones too, Michelle, so I was excited.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And I'll sprinkle in something that actually just came out for me with a session I was doing with a client a few days ago. So this was something that happened after I wrote my notes for what to talk about in the Q&A. I was sitting with a client, and this is a client who told me that he definitely feels like he is more in his reason mind than his emotion mind, right? That's the direction he veers off in more often. And he was asking me, so how do I then bring in wise mind? And what I told him, which, as Kate said, it does not have to be equal of both. It does not have to be 50% reason and 50% emotion, and then you get wise mind. It doesn't have to be that. So if this is helpful at all to those of you who tend to hang out more in your reason mind, what I told him is that if at any given moment, if he's able to pause and identify what his emotion is, that means he's bringing in some emotion mind, right?
Yep.
If you're just able to name that for yourself at any given moment, you can be thinking through, well, what makes the most sense? Do I want to do this? Or do I want to do that? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, and if I pause, how am I feeling while I'm thinking about this? Oh, well, maybe I am feeling a little bit worried and scared. Maybe some of that is here. Huh, okay. And just acknowledging that can be a good place to begin for bringing in a little more emotion mind if you're more of a reason mind person. But kind of in general, I mean, what I typically hear, or what I tend to sense when people share that they spend more time in their reason mind, and how I see that showing up for the people that I know personally or professionally as clients who are in that area more often, is like reason mind, when it goes off to an extreme degree where it's not healthy anymore, it tends to just be really rigid and very focused on results, right? This is the thing that I want. This is why I want it. I'm going to go after it. How do I get there? Again, not really focusing on the, like, how will it feel to do that? Why am I clinging to, this thing that I believe in so strongly is right, or that this is how it should be, or da-da-da-da-da. Okay, what's driving that? And if you're so in that, then honestly, whether you're aware of it or not, it's a high likelihood that you might be coming across insensitive to other people because you're not really interested in other opinions or what other people feel or what they think or that kind of a thing. You're not even probably really focusing on what you feel or think. You are just set in trying to get to this thing, whatever it is. Or again, like what you believe to be right and trying to make that a reality. If you're too strongly in reason mind. And that is not healthy. So yes, we do. We hear it often from the people who hang out a lot in emotion mind, where they're like, well, gosh, reason mind sounds so wonderful and lovely, but when you're strongly in it, that's not so wonderful. Because a lot of times, like, you're going to be pretty critical of yourself or of other people in reason mind. It can really burn a lot of bridges with your relationships if that's where you are. Because people want to feel like you can empathize with them. And you need to be able to, again, check in with yourself and know what you're feeling. When emotions drive the bus, sure, that can get us into a heap of trouble. It can. We need some logic, right? We don't want toddlers to rule the world. They're like all emotion mind all the time. But yeah, reason mind is not all sunshine and rainbows. It can actually be pretty damaging to be in reason mind too much. So I hope that helps kind of paint a picture of what it can look like. But when you are really blending the two, and what I thought of for that piece is that when you are in wise mind, you are going to be flexible and open-minded. Those are two of my favorite wise mind words. In a way that if you're too far towards reason or towards emotion, you're not going to be very flexible or open-minded. So if you're able to be open to other points of view and change things and be, adaptable as needed, there's a good likelihood that you're in your wise mind. And that can really look like, okay, if there's a thing that you need to do, there's kind of this other blend of like doing and being mind. But reason mind, I feel, is also very type A, very task oriented. So assuming that you're in your reason mind a little bit too far and you want to bring it to a wise mind place that's more balanced, you want to be able to focus on how you're feeling as you're doing the task, which I kind of touched on already. Like being able to acknowledge how you're feeling and also keeping like one foot rooted, you could say, in objectivity or logic, where it might be like, okay, so I'm noticing as I'm doing this task, I'm starting to really feel tired. I'm starting to feel frustrated. Okay, my reason mind tells me I do need to do this, and I really do need to do it by the end of tonight. However, if I find wise mind here, maybe my wise mind tells me to take a 15-minute break and then come back to it. Like, yep, okay, I am going to listen to you, reason mind. I am going to get this done by the end of tonight. But I also don't want to, keep pushing and disregarding what I feel. Whereas like emotion mind might be like, this is too frustrating. Forget about it. Right? And I'm throwing up my hands. Like Kate said, you all can't see us, but I'm throwing up my hands as I say that, right? Like, screw this. This is too much. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, table flippy.
That might be what an extreme emotion mind response would be. What did you say, Kate?
Table flippy. Like you're flipping the table.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Emotion mind wants to flip the table and not do it at all. Reason mind wants you to like keep going no matter what. Just get it done. And wise mind can really blend those two things. So hopefully with what Kate shared and what I shared, that paints a little more of a picture for how to tell the difference between all three states.
All right, I think that's it for Q&A 65. If you want to be in a future Q&A, please feel free to drop in questions and comments, etc. in the Facebook group, and also send us emails, dbtandmepodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from folks, and we promise we respond to you faster than they end up on the Q&A. So,
yeah, that is true.
All right, folks,
all right.
Next time.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT and Me podcast.